Hi, I'm Candy from Quilt Vine, and today I am going to show you how to do round 3 of Rising, Quilt Vine's first around the block of the month. Okay, this month we are doing applique, and it's going to be turn edge applique. And all we're doing is circles. It's going to be very easy, so if you've never done turned edge applique before, this is the time to start. Okay, what I like to do is I draw my applique shape onto either freezer paper or this wash away applique sheets. This is something I've just been turned on to probably about a year ago, and I really like this. You can leave the product in. After it's washed, it softens up, where if you use freezer paper, you do need to cut it out. You need to remove that paper before you actually sew your applique shape on. So to begin with, we're going to be drawing our circles onto our paper. So if you're using freezer paper, on the paper side, you'll do your circles. And if I use these sheets, these have a, they're fusible on one side. So I will need to draw my circles on the side that's not shiny. Now what I do with my circles is I like to find like the Templar circles, or even in your packet, in your pattern, you have the circles on paper. If you copy those on cardstock, and then you can cut them out and they're easy to trace around. When you have a lot of them to do, it's easier to just trace around the shape than it is to lay the paper underneath and then try to draw it. See how quick and easy that is to trace around the shape? So we've got the 4-inch, and we need 6 4-inch circles. We've got the 2.5-inch circles, and we need 4 2.5-inch circles. And then we have the 1-inch circle. And we need 16 of these. So I will demonstrate for you on the freezer paper how to do them. But I am also going to be doing mine on these wash away applique sheets. So I will be drawing my circles on those. So again, the side that's not shiny, we're going to draw our circles. And I need 6 of these, 4 of these, and 16 of these. So I will begin doing that. And once I get all my circles drawn, I'll be back. Okay, now I have all my circles traced. I have a few traced on the freezer paper, so I can show you how to do the freezer paper. And I have a majority of them traced onto the wash away applique sheets. And I did want to show you that the circles that I used are Karen K. Buckley's Perfect Circles. So for the big one, and I think maybe the 2 bigger ones, you need the bigger Perfect Circles, and then the smaller ones are Perfect Circles. I do have some of these, not many. If you would like to order them through me, just let me know and I can get them for you. Probably take me about a week to get them. But anytime you can just trace around them, it just makes it so much quicker. So now that our circles are all traced on our papers, we need to cut them out exactly on the line. So that's going to be time consuming, and you might want to sit and watch some Netflix while you do that. Okay, if you haven't done much cutting of circles, I just want to give you a little tip here on an easy way to do it. I'm just going to, first of all, I will rough cut them out. And then I need to cut them exactly on the line. And the easiest way to do that is to, you actually hold your scissors still, just bring them down slowly as you cut, and you're going to be turning the paper as you cut. So I will show you as I cut this one. See, my scissors are basically still, and I'm moving the paper. And this really helps you if you have some really nice sharp scissors. If you're using freezer paper, you probably would prefer to use paper scissors than your good fabric scissors. But as long as they're nice and sharp, we just keep it spinning the paper around and There we get a nice smooth edge. Now we're going to take and iron our circles onto the back of the fabrics. So I know there's not a lot of difference on these fabrics I'm using, but on the back of your fabric, you take your circle. If you're using the wash away applique sheets, make sure it's the shiny side with the fusible, and we just place it on the back of the fabric. Make sure you leave at least a ½ inch between your circles, because when you cut it out, you want to have about a 1/4 inch seam, or, to turn under the edge, around the edge of the circle. So I need 4 of these 2½ inch circles on this fabric. Then the small circles, I need a ton of those. There's 16 of those. And you're just going to keep ironing those onto the back. If you kind of stagger those, you want to get as many on there as you possibly can. And we just fuse those to the back. And then with the larger circles, we only need 6 of those. And same thing, make sure I've got a ½ inch in between, and fuse those to the back. And then once they're all fused, then we need to cut them out, leaving about a 1/4 inch all the way around. So I'll show you here with one of the small ones. So I'm just going to take it, and with the really small ones here, you might even want it to be kind of a scant 1/4 inch, because we're going to bring that, turn it around the edge to the back and glue it down there. And I'll show you cutting out one of the bigger ones. This one here is actually freezer paper. I am going to show you both freezer paper and the wash away applique sheets. So again, I'm just going to go around here and leave about a 1/4 inch all the way around, so I can turn the edge back. And then we're just going to keep doing that until you get all your circles fused on the backs of your fabrics, and then trimmed out about a 1/4 inch. Doesn't have to be exactly smooth like your circle, like your paper shape. Just cut them out about a 1/4 inch around. Okay, now that we have all of our circles fused to the back of our fabric, and our fabric cut out about a 1/4 inch past the paper or the applique sheets, now we're ready to glue our edges down around to the back. So the way that I like to do it is, first of all, I like to get an old catalog or an old magazine. And we're going to take our glue stick, and we're going to put glue the whole way around the edge. A little bit on the paper and also on the fabric, on that part that sticks out past the paper. And I am getting glue onto the catalog that's there. Then I'm going to put to a clean sheet, and we're going to start bringing this around, and you can feel the paper. On the bigger ones, I really prefer to use my finger. I can just feel that paper, and I pull it around. I just kind of slide it over and stick it, that glue stick, and just get it nice and stuck down there. And then just go the whole way around, and you just kind of just slide it over. Make sure you follow that curve nice and smooth. There, you can see it's all turned around to the back, and it looks smooth on the front. And then I just hit it with the iron, and the iron will set the glue, and it is ready to go. I had the iron behind me. I just hit it with the iron, and it's all nice and glued down. Now I'm going to show you with the smaller ones are a little bit more difficult. I'm going to bring this in closer. Hopefully that will help. Okay, I'm going to put it over here on this side and try to put it where there's color so you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just putting glue stick on it, And you want water-soluble glue stick. You can, get it at any like office supply store or anything like that. Now I'm going to take, for the smaller ones, it's easy to get a nice smooth curve by using the toothpicks instead of using my finger. And it's just a little more time consuming with the small ones. And you can use the toothpicks on the big ones, but I don't really think it's really that necessary. You see how I just slide it under, make sure it's pressed down tight, then you hold it with the other toothpick, make sure it's pressed down tight, and you just want to slide it over. You don't want to bend up that paper or the applique sheets. You just want it nice and smooth. And we'll just continue around there. And I'm going to go the whole way around. And once I get it around, I will hit it with the iron and really set it. Now, for some reason, if something happens and it's not real smooth, while your glue's still hot, or glue's still wet, just take it off and do it again. And just keep going around. And if you need to hit it with some more glue stick, you can go ahead and do that. You could also use the Elmer's white glue. I use that sometimes too. I find for this, the glue stick's probably easier. There's other times I prefer to use the Elmer's glue. There, I just want to get everything pressed down good. Get it nice and pressed down. Then I'm going to take it and hit it with the iron. And, all right, it's good to go. Now I'm going to take, and I'll do a big one because I'm probably quicker with the big one. This one is done with the freezer paper, but it's the same idea as with the applique pressing sheet. I'm just going to put some glue stick on there. And the bigger it is and the more gentle the curve, actually the easier it is. So I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do this one with my finger again. Just slide it over. This one is with the freezer paper. And I used to use freezer paper all the time. There's no problem with using the freezer paper, except I do need to cut it out before I apply my applique. And the applique, the wash away applique sheets, you can just leave them in. See, this is a lot easier on the big one. Just smooth it around. Here where I started, it looks a little flat. I'm just going to pull that off a little bit. And there we go. And I'll just hit it with the iron and it will be set. So I'm just going to keep doing that, and I'm going to do it until all my circles are all edge turned and glued down. And as you get glue on your page, you can just turn a page and just keep going, and just every time you get a lot of glue on your page, you just turn it and just use an old catalog or a magazine that you no longer want. I think I'm going to hit this with the iron again. This is the one with freezer paper. Then to remove the freezer paper, you need to take, I'm going to take my paper scissors. I'm going to be real careful and just score the back of it. So to remove the freezer paper, I've scored the back, and now I'm going to cut the paper out. Now what I do, and I've done a lot of quilts like this, is I actually leave that little bit, I need sharper scissors. I actually leave that little bit of freezer paper in there. And I just go ahead and sew these on and leave that freezer paper in there. And like I said, I've done many quilts this way, and it's not a problem having that little paper in there. So I just Keep going around. Be careful if you've got the sharp pointed scissors that you don't get a hole through the front. I take that freezer paper off. And like I said, around the edge there, I do have that little bit of paper in there, but I leave that. And then this is ready to be appliqued down. And the ones with the wash away sheets, oh, that's another paper one. Let me show you again with the smaller one, removing the paper. I don't know if one of the teeny ones I don't have glued down, but score it, pull it away. Get your scissors in there. And then I'm just gonna cut the whole way around. I'm gonna leave that paper in there underneath that little bit of seam. Keep going whole way around. So there's another one with the freezer paper, and it's ready to go. And like I said, the ones that have the wash away applique sheets in, I leave those in, and they'll get nice when you wash your quilt. And it gives it some stability and some stiffness, so when you applique it down, it makes it nice. And the same thing with these, even though they're flimsy in the middle with that paper on the edge, it's got nice stabilization for when you're appliquing it down. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and finish gluing all the edges, glue the edge down on the rest of all my circles, and then we will be back to stitch them on. Okay, now I have all of my applique circles ready to be applied to my Dresden plate. I have all my edges glued down and ready to go. And remember, if you're using the freezer paper, you need to cut that out. So now we're going to glue them down. Again, you can either use your glue stick or you can use your white glue. I think I'm going to use the white glue here. Really doesn't matter which one you use. So I'm going to put my bead of glue down. All the way around. And we're taking a 4-inch circle and we're placing that in the center. I guess I should have folded it a little bit to give me some registration marks. I'm gonna do it now. I'll probably have to apply some more glue then since I'm doing this. So I'm just, oh, wasn't in the camera. I'm folding this and creasing it so I can have registrations on where to place it on my Dresden plate. So now I've got the fold marks. So I need to apply a little more glue because while I was folding it, I got it all over my fingers. Okay, now I've got those registrations so I can just make sure I get it centered. Okay, and once it's centered, I'm gonna iron it into place to get the glue dry so it stays, and it'll be ready for me to sew it down. Okay, that is in place. Now I have 8 of the small circles for each Dresden plate, and if you refer to the diagram in the pattern, through the background is where we're going to cut it. So these all get placed at the other backgrounds. I'm going to put those 4 there and these 4 out from here. I can only do 4 at a time because my mat's smaller. So I'm going to pull this down this way a little bit. Hopefully you can see them all. Yeah. Again, I'm going to apply my glue. Oops, make sure it's in the camera. And place it just on the edge of the Dresden plate. And I'm going to glue them all down, and then I will hit them with the iron to set the glue. get the glue on there. And I got one more. Okay, I'll set those all with the iron. Okay, now I'm going to do the same thing with the other 4 and put them down here. And we'll be right back. All my applique circles are glued on to my Dresden plate block. And now it is time to stitch them down with the clear monopoly thread. I also just put in a new needle because it's a good idea to put in a new thinner needle if possible. What I've put in is the 80/12 top stitch needle, and you can see here on this one that I've already sewn down, you don't even see the little holes, where when I sewed my Dresden plate down, I did not change my needle and I used a bigger needle, and you can see the holes. So if you have a smaller needle, that's fine and dandy, but if you ever wash it, those holes, you're not going to see them anyway. But I do prefer a smaller needle. So I've got my monopoly thread in, I've got a new smaller needle in, and I'm using a zigzag stitch. I have my width now set at 2.8 and my length is at 1.5. And I am going to stitch around my circle here. Now, especially with the smaller circles, it's just a lot of pivoting and turning. It's better to keep the needle down and just lift your presser foot up a little bit and turn. And I'll just continue to do that the whole way around. Hopefully you can see pretty good in there what I'm doing. And you want the right of your needle to actually land in your background, and your left of your needle is landing on your applique. And just keep going around here. And you do want to make sure that when you put these little circles down, that they're at least a ½ inch from the edge, because we're going to have that 1/4 inch seam, and we don't want our little circles being cut off or stuck in the seam. And do the lock stitch. Okay, and I've already done all the other small circles in this block, and the only circle I have to applique down at this point is the large one. So now I will do that. Okay, I have all of my circles appliqued onto my 2 Dresden plates. And then mine are very neutral and very light, and they're hard to see. But my circles, they are on there. So now we're going to take each Dresden plate and we're going to cut them in half on the diagonal. And we're going to go through that background Dresden plate piece. And I'm going to go from corner to corner on the diagonal. I know it's not quite all in there. And so as you can see, well, maybe you can't see. If I put it this way, maybe you can see. But my ruler is not long enough. It doesn't go from diagonal to diagonal. So I'm going to lay my Dresden plate block down, so I have the point here and the point here going down the same number, so I can begin to cut it. And plus I can see where I had it pressed, I have a very faint line. So I am going to cut it on the diagonal. There, I've got one cut on the diagonal. You can see that. And I'm going to take and set that aside. And then I'm going to cut the other one. Same thing on the diagonal. I'm going to line it up on the points here. Okay, now I'm ready to sew these Dresden plate blocks, or I'm sorry, the Dresden plate triangles onto my square from round number 1. So I am going to pin this on, matching the centers. So I'm going to find the center. Move my block, and I'm going to stick a pin there for my center. Okay, and I'm going to find the center of that triangle. And for the ease of everything, which you'll see in a minute, I'm going to put the triangle on the bottom. So I'm going to have, there's my center of my triangle. So I'm going to put the triangle underneath, right side up. And then I'm going to pin my block from round 1 onto my triangle. And I'm going to lay it there, and I'm going to match my centers. And then, as you can see here, my triangle is bigger than my block. And it is supposed to be that way. It's the way I designed it. So you want to make sure, if you found your centers, you should be good, but you want to make sure you have the same amount of triangle sticking on this side as this side. I'm just going to lay it nice and flat. I'm not going to tug on anything. And I'm going to pin that down. And I'm going to pin it enough, because you do want to be careful that my Dresden plate block is cut on the diagonal. So it is the bias, and I want to make sure that it doesn't stretch, so I'm going to pin this plenty. And remember back when we did round number 2, when we started the Dresden plate block, I did starch it so it would not stretch. So now I've got this pinned, and I'm going to take it to my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew it. Let's move this down here a little bit closer. Okay, I still have my thread and my foot on from doing the applique, so I've got to change out my clear thread and put my 1/4 inch foot back on, and make sure I put my straight stitch back, because if I do the zigzag, I'll break my needle on my 1/4 inch foot. So, and I did already change my stitch because I wanted to make sure I wouldn't forget to do that. Let's get this threaded. Okay, so that's threaded, and now I'm ready to stitch this. So now I have that triangle sewn on, and I pressed it. You can see here where it sticks out a little past the block. And while I was doing that, I did the other side too, so opposite sides. Now what I need to do is I need to take and trim off these little corners. So let me get my ruler. And I need to trim all 4 of them off. So I'm going to lay my ruler all along that long strip. I'm just going to cut it off. And I'll do this one. And flip it around and do the other 2. Okay. Now I am ready to sew the other 2 triangles on. So I need to find my center again of my block. Oops. Okay, let's get the center there. Get one of my other triangles, and we're going to pin this on. Now with this triangle, see, because we had those extras here, I line up my centers, and my point comes my point should come 1/4 of an inch past there. So then when we sew it, everything lines up. Because you know how when you do those points like that, you need that 1/4 inch pass for the 1/4 inch seam allowance. So see on both sides. So now I'm going to pin. And now, can you see here? This point is 1/4 inch past. So I need to pin all those. I need to pin it good. And make sure this side, you can see here. I'm going to lay it out. My point is 1/4 inch past. Okay, so I'm going to continue to pin that. I'm going to sew that on. And then I'll continue and do the same thing with the other one and sew it on. And I'll show you what I end up with. Okay, I've sewn those other 2 triangles on. And as you can see, where that went past there a little bit on the end because of the 45-degree angle, and then we end up with it being straight across there. So I just want to hold this up and show you because it's pretty big. Okay, now at the end of 3 months, this is what we have. Of course, mine is different fabrics than yours. And thank you for participating in Rising around the Block of the Month. And we'll see you next time for round 4.